think this was like my choice. These streets, the meetings were held in regularly.
Yeah, in this room, I think for.
Yeah.
All right, so we are live streaming. I can pull up the agenda if you like, or I can take it off screen. You can start with some introductions.
All right, great. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. Here we'll start with our guest. If you don't mind, just give me a quick intro.
Yeah, hi, Brent Nepper, I'm Northern Forester for the city of Kingston.
I'm sorry, you said your name was what?
Brent Nepper.
Brent, okay.
Coming. My name is Paul Stangus. I'm the chair of Complete Streets. Been a member for a couple of years. I'm with the downtown.
I'm Ryan Jennings. I am a member of the Complete Streets Advisory Council. I just joined in the fall. Fairly new.
Claudette Ford, I'm a member of the Complete Streets. I've been a member for about 4 or 5 years.
Most of you know me, but I'll say it for the live stream. I'm Emily Flynn. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the liaison for this commission. All right.
EJ, do you want to?
Yeah. So my name is Elizabeth, and I'm a resident of Kingston. Moved here in what year? 21. Can't remember. 4 years ago. Anyway, I got involved because my street was being torn up, and they were not going to put the bluestone sidewalks back. So I rallied people to get them restored on my block, and got involved in the Complete Street Committee through that way.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Was there any transportation grants update?
Yes. So we can jump into that. I have printouts. Folks here in the room, we can look at together if you'd like. We can bring up on screen.
Thank you.
All right, so let me bring this up. If you'll see on the first page, there's not much different. So as you'll note in red, Ruth Ann puts any changes since the last report. So the front page is a listing of all of the current and completed projects from 2016. And on the back, you'll see that we've got pending awards and upcoming applications. So for the Rail Crossings DOT grant, it looks like her update is that the city was determined that the city was not ready for the 2025 round. For CDG,
Does that mean that maybe like in the future we might reassess?
do not know more than what's on this page. I can't even make any assumptions.
Okay.
I don't know about that one. CDGB, sorry, this one was for Academy Green. I believe that was for sidewalks and benches around the park. The public comment period has closed, and the grant will be confirmed in mid-July, so that's great news. CFA is consolidated funding application, and this is later on the agenda. You'll see letters of support. So I think she's listing here the grants that the city is applying for. ORFIP is, I believe that's the Parks and Historic Preservation. I can't tell you what every single letter stands for, but that's basically it for the recreational trails program. And Ruth Ann is writing a grant for trail maintenance equipment. Then the DEC WQIP, I do not know what that stands for. That's for a street sweeper and a vacuum. And the Clean Mobility Demonstration Grant. That's my project. I can talk more about that. That is an upcoming application happening in, we're going to start the end of this month, and the application leaves in September. If I may just explain that a little bit more. So, like we've already received a grant from NYSERDA for a planning grant for a what we're calling a clean mobility study. This is with right now we're heading in the direction of a shared e-bike system, and that round of funding for the planning grant was assuming there would be a second round of funding for an implementation grant. That's what this is. So if we're finishing up the plan, And then we're gonna immediately go into another application to try to do a pilot project, and hopefully we are successful with that. The last one, Hudson Valley River Greenway Conservancy Trail Grant, looks like for trail wayfinding signage. I think that one might not be going forward actually, because we've been on just met today. I don't think we're working on trail wayfinding signage, so that might be out of action. Any questions about that? No.
No. Okay. So is there, I know the city has street sweepers. Does anyone know if this is a sort of better street sweeper than what city currently has, or is just another street sweeper?
My understanding is specifically for trails. So
Oh, this is the one that's in,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So it must be smaller.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, this is
Yeah, let's-
details, when we pull up, yeah, so this is like the little one.
I can't speak to what the
Right,
different market equipment, but I know it's specific.
Okay.
Not that it's what I'm here for, but I could give some more insight.
Sure, yeah.
The grant for the specific sweeper is more for the vacuuming abilities of this new truck that the current sweepers do not have. So it's not yet another sweeper being added to their fleet, but rather like a specialized one for dealing with vacuuming out the storm basins where they get a lot of debris piled up inside of them. And also like permeable paving areas, those pores that allow water infiltration to get clogged, and the back trucks could be helpful with emptying those unclogged pores.
Yeah, that's great. Are we thinking like the bike lane, or is this more of like the midtown linear path and?
Like, I don't have any insight on
It sounds like it's more linear path.
Yeah,
Because most bike lanes could be covered by a regular sweeper.
Right, but
But,
here we don't have anything about it.
right, but because, you're right, because there are very few divided bike lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And, and as I look at this report, I see two different grants. The one that I'm familiar with is the first one, which is the ORFIP trail maintenance equipment. The second one, maybe that's the one that Brian is talking about. I really don't know any details about what that's for.
Okay.
But the first one, I believe, is for trail maintenance.
Cool. Do we just maybe, so we have a guest who is busy, maybe just jump to him. So I guess the reason I kind of thought they didn't invite you was because I was talking with Phil, my neighbor, who works with Emily. And yeah, and I thought the way sort of city hired you was really exciting.
Yeah.
And it also just incorporates nicely with the idea of sort of streetscapes and the way it's Kingston's done moving forward when they redesign a street. There's lots of tree plantings. And they're all just little babies right now, but someday it'll be a sweet tree. So, yeah, fingers crossed. And there's also new, there's some discussion about sort of tree laws and sort of who owns what, I guess, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to sort of see how you sort of have found the streets, and sort of how the city has done it in the past, and if there's sort of new ways that you think will be done better with your guidance, and if there's certain types of trees, I guess is a question that I wondered about, like, the sort of that help build like canopies or whatever, like you think about like redoing Foxhall. We've talked a lot about that redesign here. And I'd like to think that there's nice big trees covering, it'll just slow people down when they're driving, just because it just makes them feel like they're part of the landscape.
Until you have to pick up the leaves that drop.
Yeah, sure. Some have to pick up the leaves, but
Yeah, well, happy to ask the question of, where do we need to pick up the leaves? Does every single leaf need to be picked up? Is I think a big question. So yeah, it's a very well documented at this point, like I'll say correlation to avoid calling it causation, but tree lined streets slow down traffic because of the additional visual static of driving trees creates less of a sense of openness. So, visually it creates a reduction of the lane, even if the lane hasn't been physically reduced by trees. So the effect of like going through a canyon area versus wide open area.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as like, so for anyone else who may not know, or for the sake of the recording, my position, I was hired by the city last September. My position is also funded by Inflation Reduction Act grant, and that has mostly smoothed out in the last couple of months. Before that, I worked as a consulting forester for a few different municipalities in the Chicago area. Two of them very similar to Kingston. One a larger and more sprawly area, but definitely with a lower tax base than what Kingston has. And so the situation as I kind of found Kingston in when I started here was we are kind of at the destination of a lot of systemic elements as far as thinking about urban design and the placement of trees within it, where it is both very challenging to plant new trees. And that is not like a brand new thing. It's been that way for a few decades, which is why we see our current canopy in Kingston of street trees being either very mature trees that are, 30, 40, if not older years old, or brand new trees that are part of new street projects, and not very much in between. There's a bunch of different reasons for that, but I think some key elements to point out is the success of trees from like a trees living standpoint in the streetscape largely comes down to available uncompacted soil volume for their roots to grow in. And it's very technical, but basically, if we only, if you might think about the standard Kingston planting strip, the space between the curb and the sidewalk, maybe the width of the telephone pole that's also put in there, right? Maybe a little extra. So on average, our planting strip widths are between 3 to 4 feet wide. The soil is compacted on both sides of that, so the tree roots will not easily grow in the soil. The natural byproduct of that is also a stressor that we see with our sidewalk setup. When soil is compacted, tree roots still have a desire to grow, so they come up to the surface level, which is where their oxygen and nutrients will still be available. And so instead of roots being able to grow through the soil underneath the sidewalk, it comes up to the surface level, and hence we get the buckling issue that is so prevalent, especially in our bluestone areas in Kingston. There's no rule that says that soil has to be compacted underneath areas that either support vehicle weight or support average pedestrian and other mobility need weights on sidewalks. There is a rule that the materials that are used for either growth pavement or sidewalks has to be supported underneath. So compacting the soil underneath is one strategy in order. There are ways to do it without compacting the soil underneath that would allow trees to grow. So with that mindset, that is one of the biggest changes that is moving forward with Kingston street tree plantings and design of sidewalks. It's happening on Franklin Street. It's happening on Prospect Street right now as well, where different materials are being used under the sidewalks to allow tree roots to grow through. That won't lead to the sidewalk uplifting issue. And that's pretty much becoming a standard for doing it moving forward. Yeah.
Certain trees that deal better with compacted soil, or
yeah, there are. And as far as you asked the question, I think that dovetails well with your question of are we changing the types of trees that we're using?
I know like old cities like London or whatever, New York have like these, well, the King's an old city, but like cities that have lots of trees also, they're like the London plate, is that what it's called?
London plants and
That's like the one that you always.
Yeah, so like wetland evolved species where the soils are frequently like saturated and low oxygen levels. We figured out, oh wait, that's also the case for soils that are underneath pavement. Very little oxygen gets into those. So those trees do very well in those compacted soils for that reason. However, there is a lack of diversity issue when it comes to planting all of one kind of species. That all of these cities that saw this one species being very successful, were planted when or if the situation that's like a new pest, a new disease comes around that focuses
They're all
on that one
wiped out.
species. Correct. Yeah. So, we most recently saw it with emerald ash borer, which affected Kingston a little bit. When I've been able to dig up, there wasn't as huge of an effect. That pest actually got started in the Chicago area, so I've been working on it for a long time. There's previous pests and disease before that. So where we are today are updated internal planting lists that I'm working into having a more polished and presentable one to be posted on the city's urban forestry webpage. Has over 90 different tree types for planting that are appropriate to the city of Kingston, categorized by small, medium, and large size trees in order to meet both the strategy of the arborist world, we call it right tree, right place. So we would not plant a tree that would grow to 60 feet tall under power lines intentionally. But there's a wealth of small tree options that can go in there. And then opportunities where we do have more soil volume, where we don't have an overhead utility conflict, we have to plant large trees in those areas to actually get more canopy coverage. And then my strategy for knowing to put those trees is largely focused, and it's also the directive of the grants that I operate under, for increasing tree equity in Kingston, for the areas where there is the least tree canopy coverage. And all that's been fully mapped out through these wonderful resources by groups like American Forests, even the U.S. Forest Service has been involved with that. So it really helps give some direction for where to focus tree plantings.
And when you, sorry, go ahead.
Storm drains, tree droppings, and leaves. So are any of these pine trees, I guess? I'm concerned about leaves do cause a problem with drainage. And they have to be swept or manually moved somehow.
Right.
So when planting these trees,
What am I doing about that?
yeah, what are you doing about that? And the other thing I wanted to ask, in other cities, I know to try to solve the problem, they would plant certain trees with shields or whatever to kind of force the roots to grow underneath the compaction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that, or are they not doing that as much anymore?
Yeah, that idea of doing steel plating underneath sidewalks to resist the pressure of the roots growing did not really address the issue of the compacted soil underneath. There was more of just, well, you can't grow low, but now we're also making it so you can't grow high. An example that you all might have seen, and our storm event last Friday, large trees that have fallen over, you don't see that they're pulling up a root system that's the same width of the tree crown. You're seeing a root system that's maybe 6 feet wide, and it's fallen away from the street because no roots grew underneath the street to support it. No, my interest is actually more in allowing roots to grow as far as possible for better structural integrity in the trees. It makes them more storm resilient that way. And then as far as the leaves go, I think diversity is a good strategy as well. To not only have what has been the most two commonly planted trees of maples and sycamore/London plane, they have very broad leaves. It's like that's going to very easily get caught up in a storm drain. There's a lot of other types of trees that have very small leaves that also varieties of those were bred for street tree purposes, specifically because of the storm drain issue in the first place. The flip side of that is that now I also hear complaints about the small leaves getting clogged in the windshield wiper vent area on the front of cars. So, maybe we'll figure out a tree that doesn't drop leaves, doesn't make seeds. Never needs pruning, never needs watering.
Austere steel poles.
And the funny second idea is that would be what if we just replace trees with like steel poles and like canopies to provide shade? Interestingly enough, I'm curious if you all might be already familiar with this website, the Vibrant Cities Lab. It's a really great resource for thinking about trees as far as being beneficial to the urban living environment. Tons of case studies, tons of examples for how to meet very specific goals for urban living when it comes to like urban tree design. But that being said, one fun thing to actually see if you poke around the Vibrant Cities website is that there's studies of shade produced by trees versus shade produced by awnings, buildings, that sort of thing. Where the shade produced by trees is actually a few degrees of temperature cooler than buildings and awnings. Because those trees are not just blocking sunlight, they're also exhaling water vapor that is the temperature of the water in the ground, which is usually around 50 to 70 degrees throughout the entire day. So, they're basically making an evaporative cooler that we really feel so much better than we do just sitting, even though awnings and north sides of buildings are nice on really hot days, trees can even get to a few more degrees. Yeah.
Advanced technology.
Right? Yeah.
EJ, do you have a question?
Yes. I'm sorry, I had to deal with the work emails. I didn't hear your introduction. Are you part of the city staff or are you a volunteer?
Yeah, so I'm the urban forester for the city.
Oh, great. Okay. I have a question that may not be relevant to this committee, but I'm just going to use since you're here. Franklin got new trees planted on the entire, well, most of the street. I think they were able to save some of the larger ones towards Washington. So this is a really weird question. I called before and no one ever got back to me. The tree bags, the water bags?
Yes.
Well, these trees were planted over 2 years ago, and those bags are still there, but they're not being refilled with water. Do you think it'd be okay to take them off?
I would recommend for anyone that has the resources that the trees planted in front of their home to be able to continue to fill those water bags once a week.
Okay, so basically the tree is in front of a shed that belongs to the house next to me, not in front of and I'm watering it. He rents the house out. The tenants don't deal with it. So I've been watering it all the time, but it just, can I get a new bag? The bag is leaking. So that's the only thing. I guess I should ask for a new bag.
If you want a new bag, I can get you a new bag.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, that'd be great. 104 Franklin. Okay, perfect.
My email is pretty publicly accessible.
Okay, I'll send you an email. Thank you. Okay, sorry to take time here, but that's appropriate. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you had a question too, right?
Yeah, so you mentioned like tree or getting diversity in our coverage, and I'm not sure if you're talking about diversity in the tree species or like or equity rather, like ensuring that places that currently have very few trees can actually get more trees. And can you talk a little bit about the strategy for like where we're trying to fill in more?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different strategies, and my goal is for both diversity of species and equity of canopy coverage. Canopy coverage has only become more and more crucial for all urban environments as we're seeing more extreme temperatures and extreme storms. But that being said, my combination of resources for strategizing planting locations. One of them is that currently when we do street tree planting, it is around developing a consensual relationship with the property owner to put the street tree in front of their home. This is probably the most important way for street trees to be successful, as opposed to other strategies that have been done by other cities that I've worked for and stuff. It's our public right of way. We will do what we want with it. That would not be very successful in Kingston, where so much of the city code puts the public right of way responsibilities onto the property owner in the first place. But that being said, location wise for that, there is another public resource website. I think that's called it's either I think it might be treecanopy.us. And that has made a map of every urban defined area in the United States, defined its canopy coverage, then went down to the census block level to see how these each individual census blocks might be on various scales of considered to be disadvantaged. And with that, kind of made the very simple matrix of like, where are the least number of trees and where are they the most vulnerable people to heat effects? And so they combined the two.
Even at.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that tree-canopy.us website, there's little sliders and filters to get all that information, to show you which areas should make sense to be the highest priority. So that gets me to the census block level. And as far as where trees can actually fit within that area, that right now I'm relying on the data from our 2018 tree inventory that we had done as a grant project, where that inventory also identified ideal planting locations for trees in the planting strip, on either in the planting strip or in the public right-of-way space from the curb within the front yard, for trees to be planted.
This is cool.
It's so cool.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really, really good job with that.
Very
How much canopy did that?
Yeah, so it shows you the canopy coverage. It shows you, so this is based off of data that's a combination of aerial photography and LiDAR data that went through some highly refined AI processing that basically, with LiDAR data now, the LiDAR data can identify tree species just from overhead scanning, basically from like aerial height. They can also identify whether it's a 6-foot tall baby tree or whether it's a shrub. What I like about this is that it shows the difference or discrepancy changes in canopy coverage between 2015 and 2021, which are the last data points for recording for this. And you can do different filtering to even show in little like blobby ways. Like Emily, maybe if you zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go for a second. Okay, so let's go inward here. So we're right in the Midtown area, and most of these, so there's a change in color from light green to dark green, and that represents canopy coverage. What you can also do is turn on the actual LiDAR data to show the trees themselves. So this here is, Midtown. We've got Broadway as the three-way lane here, and that's the current canopy of 2021, and then the historical canopy of 2015. Probably the most obvious thing to notice here is that in 2015 there was more canopy, specifically in the Midtown area, than there is today. This is a good representation of, as I zoom back out, we can see that there are significant areas in both uptown, midtown, and even when we get into, the fairly wooded downtown areas, but between like Palmcoffee, Wilbur, and Rondout, we can see these discrepancies.
The purple areas are trees that were there, they're no longer there.
Correct, yeah.
And then this historic, trees that aged out.
Well, so that's the big unknown part of this is like, in between 2015 and 2021, did these trees naturally decline and die? Percentage of them, definitely. I would guarantee that's the case. All of them, I would not assume so. Yeah, so while it makes sense, of course, for like, public safety and everything to remove dead trees, like where they're standing to mitigate that risk, I get enough calls throughout the month of residents who are so disappointed that their neighbor has removed a perfectly healthy living tree from the backyard, because it will have physical effects to their quality of life and their financial expenses for heating and cooling well by that tree. But yeah, this data also reflects what we kind of know in like the urban forestry world as a decades-long decline in canopy coverage in cities. Sometimes it's the result of de-investment, sometimes it's the result of renewed development or more like sprawl-based development. Basically between this data, which is so like visual and able to be like easily read and digested and everything, and some more like, I'll call it crunchy data that I've investigated. We're at like an average over the last 40 years of about 0.4% canopy decline in Kingston year after year.
What's the city's goal in terms of planting? I know there's like a.
Yeah. So Mayor Noble has made a goal of planting 1,000 trees by 2030.
How will that affect the sort of, will that offset the loss of previous years or?
That's a challenging question to answer. It's for me to kind of dig into that a little bit. Like, there's still a potential for Kingston to have a canopy coverage goal. And I think the canopy coverage goal will be a lot better at meeting these, equity goals as opposed to planting 1,000 trees. I think because the cost of doing this kind of work is tree by tree, it makes sense to think about it of like, the data that we got from our 2018 inventory was that the city, between its street trees and its like manicured park areas, so think like mowed area with like a pretty ornamental tree or like a tall shade tree next to a playground, total number of all those trees, about 4,000 trees. And you can go to the City of Kingston website on the urban forestry page and load an interactive map that I've made that shows all of those trees and gives like some basic information that you can click on tree by tree as well. With that, even though we can look at that canopy map and see that there's still so much areas for trees to be added, specifically along the streets, sadly no, it's like, yeah, Kingston could easily accommodate 1,000 more trees in its overall, canopy coverage. And 1,000 by 2030 was a nice round goal to achieve. We're at about the halfway point since that goal was announced, and we're actually at the halfway point for planting trees too. After the spring, we made it over the 500 mark.
I know New York City used to give out free trees.
Yes.
In the spring to people who wanted to plant them on their own properties and stuff. Is that something?
Yeah, so City of Kingston, we have a free tree planting program also. I'm working on more people knowing.
How does that work? Do you get to sort of guide what tree you would get, or is it you guys are like, this tree would be good here, just that's the tree you get?
I mean, we really advise heavily on like the right tree for the right place. But we also give a property owner who wants to have a free street tree planted in front of their home an option of trees that I think are compatible, that don't also have issues with either like is it like an invasive species that'll be a problem in our natural areas? Is it a tree that's kind of notorious for having root systems that go after underground utilities? We also mark underground utilities before planting the trees for this program too. There's no expense to the property owner. The management of the tree does become the property owner's responsibility, which it mentions that in our application. And then I also keep an ongoing email chain with everyone right now from the past 2 years that have gotten free trees planted to give them reminders for like, hey, your tree will need some watering. We had a very wet spring, so it's fine if you didn't, but we're coming into the hot and dry period. If you happen to have a bag that has been torn up by weed whackers or something like that, we can get you a new bag to lower how much time you have to spend with watering. That's the purpose of those bags, is fill it up once and then only do it once a week.
Can I just make sure I'm understanding you?
Yeah.
Do you mean in the cities right away or on private property in other locations?
So we focus mainly in the public right-of-way area, but we also do within 10 feet of the front property line. There's a lot of areas where there's just simply not room to fit the tree between the sidewalk and the curb. Maybe there is no sidewalk. And the right-of-ways very, street to street. So.
And that's basically what I was thinking. I live on a particularly narrow street, very narrow sidewalks. But we do have this sort of areas for planting in front of our house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I might be-
So what should they grant if they wanted one?
Yeah, so similar to the tree map I just mentioned, City of Kingston's urban forestry website, kingston-ny.gov/urban forestry. That application is also on our tree commission webpage, which is, they got the good URL, it's kingston-ny.gov/trees.
Gotta fight for it.
Yeah, well, they were here first. So, yeah, in the additional links section, there's the free tree request permit. For anyone who wants to do some sort of maintenance on their street tree, just regular pruning, that sort of thing, we do have a permit process for that. I recognize the complication there of both making the property owners responsible for the street tree maintenance, but then also requiring them to do a permit before they do any maintenance. Long term, I think there's some possible solutions to that would require some really robust changes to the code and possibly some changes to how the city currently invests in street tree maintenance. Yes.
Other than parks, does the city maintain its own trees?
The short answer is no. The street trees maintenance of them is within the Kingston City Code, which is chapter 373. Those are the maintenance of them is the responsibility of the abutting property owner.
What about businesses?
Sorry, say that again?
What about a business that has a tree on Broadway it's in front of their store?
That would be the responsibility would still be to the abutting property owner as per our city code.
And do the business owners know this?
From what I've experienced, very few people.
I was about to say, yeah.
Like the majority of the city code, very few of our residents and business owners are well versed in it.
Yeah, that I was wondering about that. I imagine it would be a surprise to most of them.
You should give away, think about like.
So if you are a business with a tree
Yes.
and the tree is, I've lived in Oakland and New Haven and Berkeley, and trees were the bane of public works existence. So, but
Same here.
But yeah, you were from, when you said Chicago, I said, okay, he understands. But, okay, so you've got the tree's torn up your sidewalk, the tree dies, okay, for whatever reason. The tree's gone. I don't want another tree. What do you do to convince them that perhaps they do want a tree? Especially when they're like, I gotta clean leaves, I gotta do whatever. Is it like, if you're saying that it's the property owner's responsibility as opposed to the city's responsibility, how do you get that tree back? Because that was always a problem for us.
Yeah,
We,
absolutely.
it was like, the tree is gone, don't put another one there, please don't put another one there.
Yeah. How do you make anyone do anything that they're currently unwilling to do?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in pursuing that strategy.
Okay.
I don't think long-term it's successful either way. If someone is really not wanting to have a tree put in front of their place, I'm more interested in connecting with them and the reasons for that. Does it come down to maintenance? If so, I think it's yet another point of really important data to present to the city of if we want to have street trees, but we see that our community members do not have the resources to be responsible for management, how do we reconcile that situation? And so that is, granted, long-term, my goal that I'm working on.
Do you know about the sidewalk improvement been proposed?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm wondering if that, I mean, it seems very related to that, because, it would be the public taking over the private responsibility
Right.
of the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Well, that should be, yeah.
Okay.
It's in what we've been talking about and what John and I are drafting a request for proposals for a planning project for a sidewalk improvement plan, which might turn out to be a district. So far in that, it wouldn't be that they would change the maintenance requirements. It would just be a funding mechanism for improving sidewalks. With granular detail there, but it is.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest distinction to make. And I think with these improvement programs, when we are actually gonna have that insight to, are we going to design the sidewalk area to accommodate trees? There's a bunch of different ways to accommodate trees that Emily and I have fun nerding out about too. But and I think a lot of it is complementary to a lot of, overall complete streets goals as well. Yeah, I think I had one more thing that I wanted to, oh, right, yeah, so, one thing that is in the works, and I've mentioned a lot of the limitations that Kingston is currently under when it comes to like adding trees to our like streetscapes. And those are, they're physical limitations, narrow planting strips, overhead utilities. Both of those are expensive things to try to rectify, and, compact the soils from like paving projects. The second one is community valuing of street trees. With a generational canopy decline becomes a normalization that streets don't have trees. And where streets do have trees is where there's very big old trees that have not ever received any maintenance that are now causing sewer problems. Branches fall, damages, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it creates this feedback loop. One of my biggest focuses is is having more city connection with community members around trees in the first place. Instead of this just being a thing that the city voice onto community members and then makes their responsibility. The second thing is to also find ways to drastically meet the unmet needs that can be such barriers for people to be willing to take on a tree, which is the maintenance resources. There are different ways to help young trees with their watering needs beyond just someone, hopefully, who lives in front of or lives where the tree is planted, being able to run a garden hose out once a week. That stuff is all kind of under like different consideration right now. But I'm also in the process right now of working with our common council on updating our city code around trees to adopt a tree preservation ordinance.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, and with that ordinance, right now what we have, if a property owner wants to remove a street tree in front of their home, for many different reasons, different spectrum of like values behind removing the trees, but if they want to do so and the tree is not like standing dead, we ask them to replace the lost asset of that tree by planting a new tree in its place. And when the tree is just completely dead, while we still have the property owner cover the cost of removal of the tree and that sort of thing, which is like a significant financial burden on their end, we then do the new tree planting replacement for free for them. But in the situations where a property owner just wants to remove the tree because they don't like it, for whatever reason maybe, but it's a perfectly healthy living tree, there's a way of creating an actual financial value of that tree based off of the size, how many equivalent nursery trees would it take to replace the size of that tree, and then also factoring in the condition of the tree, the species of the tree, the location of the tree, which all might contribute to a lower value than a perfect specimen tree of a certain size. And if the property owner still wants to remove this healthy tree after they've understood the actual financial value of that tree, and part of that financial value is the financial benefits that tree provides to the community that the tree is within, then we would ask them to replace that financial value either by covering the cost of replanting the equivalent number of trees, or to pay into a tree bank, separate financial account, to which I would then like to use those funds for better street tree maintenance.
So this is new code that you're proposing?
Yeah, it was originally proposed at the end of March to Laws and Rules. On the City of Kingston Urban Forestry page, there's a few links to show both the slideshow from our public information hearing that we had 2 months ago about the ordinance, as well as the original draft of the ordinance that was submitted, as well as the most recently revised draft that has that tree bank information I just mentioned that was given to Laws and Rules at the beginning of the year.
So I have a question about the historic trees that exist mainly in Midtown and Uptown.
Yeah.
I don't believe you were involved. Were you involved in the Franklin Street tree process? I'm sorry. Were you involved in the
This will be
Franklin?
my last question before I end, before I have to step out of this meeting, but can you repeat your question?
I'm sorry. I thought you were, I didn't realize you had to go. Well, I can communicate with you separately if you want. I just am confused about who was involved with the tree process from Franklin Street was redone because there was a lot of aggravation about the older trees. That's a whole nother topic. We can handle that offline. And then also about who is telling owners in Midtown and Uptown where there's a prevalence of older trees. Hey, your tree needs maintenance. You need to get it pruned. You need to before it starts becoming dead, that kind of thing. But I can talk to you later. I'll contact you if this, is not appropriate for now. Okay.
And I can get you that tree back too.
Yeah, I'll email you. Okay, great.
Did anyone else have any
Can I ask a
questions?
question?
Yeah.
Yeah, any sort of thoughts or action item type thoughts about how we can elect like it's like is to the extent that your policy proposal is aligned with Complete Streets goals, like that might be something for us to consider supporting as a community and or as a committee. Similarly, like are you thinking about pedestrian infrastructure and actually the goals of like when you're thinking about placement, is there enough latitude that comes into consideration? Oh, this actually would be a good street to slow far down on. This could serve street infrastructure.
Yeah, my experience is that every street is a street. So far from a couple of months that I've been able to live things. Yeah, like a call to action on my end is not to just ask, the Streets Council for support, but read over the draft preservation ordinance. It's about 30 pages long. So it has a lot of technical information. I know I touched on a lot of technical aspects. Those are fleshed out even more in the draft ordinance as well. Basically, the goal of this ordinance is both to have a better way of valuing trees as like a community resource and to actually put financial value space around that, but then also create better specifications for both the city of Kingston to follow and also some accountability on the city of Kingston's end when it comes to trees around street projects, which is more laid out processes for our various departments within the city to go through whenever any tree actions are taking place. I think that's kind of like, my call to action is just check out the draft ordinance. If you have questions, don't worry, everyone else does too. Send them my way, please.
Quickly, can you tell them what vehicle you wanted to use when you first started?
Oh, yeah. So the grant project, or the grant funding source that provided my position also provided just a little under $10,000 a year for the rental of an electric vehicle for me to go around and do my inspections. The city already has a fleet vehicle. It takes me about 2 hours a day to do my inspections. I don't need a car sitting around the rest of the time. I'm also a year-round cyclist, so I made the request to actually get a cargo electric bike to go around and do the inspections. The problem was the grant was not interested in purchasing expensive equipment, only leasing expensive equipment. So I haven't been able to find anyone willing to lease me an electric car.
Go for it.
Yeah.
If I buy an electric cargo bike, not gonna be sitting
Yeah.
do it.
You don't know that for the city of Kingston to do.
Sure.
Piece of fruit. Yeah, we're like, bye.
Right. Okay, yeah, all right. It's a nice e-bike.
Well, yeah, but instead I got permission from the grant source to use that $10,000 for additional tree plantings and tree maintenance costs and everything. Yeah, the money's not the city.
He doesn't appreciate that was his first goal.
Yeah, maybe you should have led with that. Anyway, I gotta run. Really appreciate all your questions. Anything else that comes up, please send me an email.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
So did we get any project ideas?
Sure.
Can you take a look at them?
Sure. So let me know what you want. So I took the projects that we had talked about previously. Where else did we get some? Phil added some, and I believe two projects were entered through the form, and I've added them. Tonight is sort of your last chance to add any projects. You want me to try to like read, there's about 25 of them. Do you want to go? I don't think we have the time to go.
Yeah.
Do you want me like, do you want to just like read through the project names and sort of get an idea of what they are? Or would you rather, well, how would you like to use this, like 10 minutes of time?
So the project.
5 minutes? Okay. Temporary high school bike lane. That feels a little bit understandable. Greenkill bike lane ends signage. Greenkill bike curb at Iwo Jima. Broadway bike lane temporary delineators. Parking day pop-ups, that's that one day in the fall where you sort of take over a parking spot. Broadway and Delaware intersection traffic calming. Adopt a crosswalk. Daylighting intersections, and I think these were multiple intersections with different potential treatments. Benches at bus stops. Washington Ave sidewalk, that's specifically one gap between Greenkill and Boulevard. To do that in the sidewalk segment. Lower Broadway turn lane. I think that's down by Beale Street. Greenkill turn lane. Block off turn lane and incorporate into curb.
Block off.
Block off turn lane. I think this is one of Phil's project. I think the idea is that the turn lane at the 5-way intersection to block off one of the turn lanes there. Then his second project idea was then Wall Street to close one of, you know, where the two roads come into the 5-way intersection. He wants to close one to so it's only one way.
So it's not like that sort of one way that's kind of confusing.
So he wants to block Wall Street.
So you couldn't go.
Well,
Yeah.
one's comes this way, Wall Street goes the other direction, right?
Right.
One's
Yeah.
one way this way, it's that way.
And the ones, it's the opposite of what you think it should be.
Yes, it is not the opposite of what you think it should be.
So, and he's saying to block Wall Street. I think Wall Street is the closer one, the one that you come out of. I'm not sure of that. So, but it's one of those.
Wall Street is that the one that the schools?
Wall Street is the second one,
Wall Street is the second
and
one.
it's the one
That you
going
said it's on?
toward uptown.
Okay, so then it's the entry road that I think it is suggesting to block.
Right, because that's where you want to turn and go, and then you're like, oh, wait, it's too long to turn.
Well, that's great for the kids to decrease traffic.
You could also
I don't think
maybe
he goes
make
that
it,
far. I think he's just talking about like one block, just basically just to simplify that intersection, the 5-way.
yeah, I mean, you could even do, thinking back to when, talking about that little parklet, like if you close it off, you could even make like another little parklet there or something, potentially, the dead end street, I don't know,
Yeah.
there's ideas.
Old Dutch Church curb extension.
That's happening, right?
So, yeah, I don't know that I agree with so this I think is also built into this. So his potential was to expand the project to include the physical curb. I think that's the ultimate goal.
I thought that's what was actually happening.
Yeah, so again,
Yeah,
we dumped in ideas, we're gonna take this to DPW and engineering next, okay. Delaware curb ad extension, so again, that intersection we've talked about multiple times. Clinton Ave street lanes, so to say, road is very wide, especially from Franklin to Greenkill. Opportunity to incorporate bike infrastructure. He's saying to paint lines to delineate 10-foot driving lanes, 8-foot parking lanes, and use the rest for bikes. So I think he's talking about sort of a painting lines on Clinton Ave is the way that I would describe them. Thomas Street closure, so from Broadway to Sacramento. St. Thomas Street from Broadway to Sacramento. Thomas Street. I don't remember where St. Thomas Street is.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, Temple Street. Oh, it's the one.
Oh, yes, okay. So Broadway bike lane, everyone does that cut through. He wants to close that and have it only be for pedestrians and cyclists. So it can't be the cut through to get to Corona.
Right.
Oh.
And the park, but it's where the parking is too, right?
Right, so I think he's suggesting that you just close off like this section right here. Can you see my? Yeah,
Right. So force the
exactly.
traffic to go to Cornell and enter the parking lot that way.
Because there's other ways for cars to get there.
That's interesting.
Right. That makes a lot.
And it's the Empire State Trail there. So.
And yeah, also just the way, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you're coming south on Broadway, you're not supposed to even take a left there. Isn't there a sign that says no left turns, but people just do it all the time?
I don't think there's signage, but my understanding is sort of like, if there is not a break in the yellow line,
Yes.
you're not supposed to cross the yellow line.
I think there might even be a sign.
That you're right. I think in the driving code, it says if there is a stop, double yellow line, you are not supposed to cross it, but people do it all the time.
People do it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's actually signage.
Yeah.
I thought the law was that if there was no sign, we talk about turning right on red, right?
No, not right on red, double yellow, making a left on or making.
Oh, a
any
left,
turn.
sorry, left, okay, never mind, sorry.
Crossing both lines,
When
yeah.
I saw it, I was just shocked that it was so blatantly a sign that I just assumed there wasn't, because when I'm walking, when I'm biking, I just always love to make sure no one's just taking that left and right, either way. But yeah, the sign is right. Interesting.
Okay, that's St. Thomas Street. Okay, curb extension, mid-block crossings on Broadway. So I think at Franklin and Field Court, he wants like curb extensions, so to shorten that pedestrian crossing.
Yeah. That's great.
Boulevards, he wants speed humps on the boulevard. He wants a speed hump on a Beale and a speed hump.
Street.
Hudson goes down toward the water. So it's the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
around it.
Speed hump on Kingston Point, so between
Yeah.
parking Delaware and Delaware North Street. And then a speed hump on Lucas Ave. Between Merritt and Boulder. And then he wants one on Lucas and Millers. So those I think are, he wants an elevated crosswalk on Millers. I'm sorry, on Lucas, where Millers hits Lucas.
Elevated like a table in the street or elevated like.
In a speed table must be. I don't think he's. I
Yeah.
don't think.
I was like,
That's a little bit.
No, like a speed hump, but wider so that. it's-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he gets that past DPW, but it sounds like a good idea. That one, I don't know if it would fall in.
So, well, so that's there are two
Yeah,
more.
yeah, let them figure it out,
Let's
yeah.
discuss that.
Yeah.
Prince and Garden and Hasbrook roundabout. So he wants to put a roundabout.
So this was me.
Oh, this is you. Yeah, yeah.
The round, so like traffic I really think like if we can get traffic engineering and DPW on board with more like traffic circle kind of thing as calming, I think those can maybe be really effective alternatives in a lot of places to speed tables.
We're gonna rival the. Is that where
Yeah, right.
Top chase.
Yeah,
is?
yeah, exactly.
Right,
Like,
Well, that's especially.
Right, because
The visibility's bad.
visibility is terrible, we're confused. And so if you just had to, if you wanted to go through it, if you just had to like follow this path sort of around, it would be so much safer. There's plenty of room for that. You just like move the Hasbrook entry to it back a little bit.
I love introducing roundabouts in the city that needs them. It's like so much fun. No, really.
Get kind of good rounding, sorry.
Roundabouts in the city of Berkeley, California, which I did put in a few. They love them. A lot of people hated them, but they were there for the exact reason, for traffic calming. I'm just laughing here because most people, when I speak to them about a roundabout, they just go, they don't, so if you can get one in, great.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any of these small traffic calming type roundabouts.
Right, they're all huge and people use them
The
just
like
fly
massive,
around.
terrifying thing.
Yeah, a little one that was in a neighborhood, you know, like very, they'd be like, oh, I don't have to go 90 miles around this thing.
Yeah, and the traffic circles is really what I'm advocating more than roundabouts, you know?
Yeah, there are, that is what the roundabout is. It's a circle.
Yeah, usually people call the smaller ones traffic circles, where there's just like some small thing.
California would be different, they call them roundabouts, but anyway.
Cool.
We had, and they were also there for storm drainage flooding. So it's
Great.
you could build in swales and things into them. They were there.
When I visited England and Ireland, traffic circles are all over the place, and it is a joy to drive because you're not having to sit at a stop sign and never be. I mean, I love them. I thought they were great. I think we should have more of them.
There you go. This last one is quite ambitious. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, this is set for like huge and a horrible intersection at the Rite Aid that's now ceasing to be a Rite Aid.
Oh,
You know, Broadway, Prince, that whole thing.
yeah, that's it's an interesting idea also. But I don't know if there's enough. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, a roundabout has much higher traffic throughput
Yeah.
than say a signalized intersection.
Yeah.
So you could drop it down to one lane each direction, and it would sort of have more than enough capacity for the traffic that goes through there by about 50%. So you could actually then be able to reduce.
You would still
the
have to
lanes,
have
though.
some kind of pedestrian control though, because.
Yeah, sure.
Because
It's true, I think that's the biggest criticism of
that's the problem.
Um,
For many people, the circles are nice. Well, yes, but they are sometimes difficult to navigate in terms of pedestrians.
Yeah.
Because nothing stops, really.
Well,
It should to get in, but I'm just saying, it's the perception that things are moving all the time and we're just gonna stop for the flow of pedestrians. That would be my only answer.
well, I think if you have to place the crosswalks in the right place, but also I think if they're only crossing one lane of traffic at a time, that helps too. Like if you have kind of an island between each lane so that you can really make sure that one car is stopped before you cross.
It's worth a try. I'm just saying, those are the things that I would be
Yeah.
concerned with.
Yeah, like with the way Broadway is now, if you're trying to cross like 2 lanes, if you're going off 587 or even end of Broadway, like that's just, I've never once crossed there. Like I avoided it at all costs, like and
Yeah.
walking because I don't want to deal.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Also, I want to clarify real quick the idea number 2 of the green kill thing, which was my idea. The fact that the green kill bike lane ends abruptly. I finally actually made my little sketch of what I think it should look like. I have yet to meet a cyclist who doesn't think that this is sort of the obvious thing.
Oh no, it's
Sure.
right. It makes so much more sense.
Makes so much more
Well,
sense.
it makes me nervous, honestly, because of the visibility issue with the emerging into the traffic. But
It's got the yield sign there too.
The onus is still going to be on.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's a yield sign for the cyclist.
But it just makes so much more sense to us.
So here's my next challenge here.
Yeah,
Show me an example of that out in the real world where it's successful.
sure.
So we went back and forth a little bit. I found in the NACTO guidelines what they recommend and what I would recommend, but I'm not a transportation engineer, you all know that, is basically you transition the bike lane into the road and I would push it back. So where your drawing is, it narrows very quickly, but if you sort of pretend that where you're taking that photo behind you, if you could transition the bike lane sort of into the road by, if you sort of see it, sort of like a little bit of a curve, so you gradate it down and control it, and then there's a bit of a path that's on the road at the same time you could transition into it. That I could see as an eventual solution there.
So what you're looking for is a smoother transition into a shared lane.
Like this, I think, is a little bit dramatic looking. Like, we can't just have the bike lane go. But I think you know that. So I think your vision is more.
I don't know, it's like, it's strange, like, if you have this intermediary lane, that's sort of like a short painted bike lane.
Yeah.
To me, that seems like it's just adding complexity to the situation in an area where there's almost no traffic and for it to.
Not trust my daughter to use to go into.
Yeah.
I
So the share rooms aren't very good for children. I don't trust your daughter to go to the share room. And I think that's the fundamental problem. Right now, we have a share room, and there's absolutely no sensible way for a cyclist to get to it. So every cyclist that takes this sort of navigates awkwardly down the pedestrian thing and is like, oh, this clearly was not made for cyclists.
Yeah.
This feels illegal and wrong. And I'm just like, why don't we just legalize the thing that literally everyone does?
Maybe because the viability.
Mhm.
So I think the way it is designed now, there is a liability factor the city is going to take on. But what you, John, I think that it's too possible that someone would dump out onto that street and get. So at least with the signs the way it is now,
Not
unfortunately,
realizing that they're.
I think it's-
traffic.
I think it's liability that, look, we put up signs. You're supposed to stop your bike and merge on so that they can defend themselves if they get sued. So
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
No, that makes sense.
And it is nice to have the idea you can have your kids on the Grace Hill bike lane and like, you can just be like, just stop at the end, come back or something.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking they might.
But I'm serious when I say, show me that.
Sure,
You can find it.
No, it's a
You know,
good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So projects so this is sort of your last chance to add projects for DPW and engineering to consider. Anything you want to add?
I just always confounded, and I'm now taking to not crossing there, Broadway, and McEntee. I just hate it as an intersection. I don't know what this.
Where's that?
It's when you're coming down Broadway and it goes the big loop and then it goes down at the Catholic Church.
You're talking about where Broadway turns, the 90-degree turn?
Yeah, so,
Going back
three
around
blocks up.
it?
Yeah, right
This
there.
one? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, would it be,
because so basically the north side of Broadway there, that is just completely overgrown. Like it's a sidewalk, but it just ends at the light and no one's really walking over there. Now with the storm, there's like trees over there, down over there. And when you cross Broadway from the McEntee side, when you have the signal to cross, the cars are turning from Broadway onto Broadway. And so you're walking with them turning, often coming very fast. And so I cross that Rogers. 'Cause I live.
Yeah, I thought I always walk down and cross.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure. I don't know.
We don't have to know the
Yeah.
answers, so.
You
part
can
of
just
this
bring it up
project
as a potential
is an
treatment.
issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the traffic engineer should.
Yeah, hopefully they give me that. Well, one thing I put in, I walked around the Rondo when my wife was out of town. I was like coming home from somewhere and I was like, I'm just gonna walk around and find all the streetlights that are out. I sent it to Michelle Hirsch too. There's 16 of them.
Oh, wow.
And apparently they know about all these because there's all these underlying issues and they're trying to get an electrician and all this stuff.
Yeah,
They
but
know
I
about.
don't believe the city has an electrician right now.
Yeah, so they're trying to hire one. But the light at that intersection is also out. Doesn't help any of this.
He was
Consider it at nighttime. It's dark. There is a thing that says like yield to pedestrians before turning, but you can't see the sign because the streetlights out.
Yeah.
So you made a solution to just like fix the damn streetlight.
But the city doesn't have an electrician on board?
We've had them, right now the position I believe is unfilled.
Okay.
I think it's hard for for an electrician to take a job in the city. I think they can make a lot more money. In electrician.
Oh, yeah.
That's.
So it's definitely, a tricky intersection.
Yeah.
I don't, have yeah, maybe they do.
Even up on like West Chestnut, like that's where I live up there.
Mhm.
And if I'm coming down to the Rondo, go down West Chestnut.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that overgrown insanity on
You have to
cross there, it's like I have to cross at Chestnut and Broadway, which is also like run for your life.
right.
To get to the other side, and then
That's
there-
even worse. It's not even a crosswalk.
No, so you just have to sort of
I don't-
go for it.
That's really your life in your own hands.
And then you come down and
Yeah.
you're never there. Just I don't know.
How I get into town, so I used to do all the time, and now, like I said, I used to do it at Rogers, because the
Right.
church is so much quieter. But anyway, all those other, there's a lot of, problem areas we've talked a lot about on this list, so it's a good list.
So my next step is I'm gonna bring this to engineering and DPW. My goal is to select a handful of projects that everyone is sort of okay with. Nothing's gonna be perfect, nothing's gonna be that expensive. So, we have a $50,000 cap on the projects. So, but my hope is after I have that meeting with them I was thinking to come back and present what they decided back to you. And then try to give that list to the mayor. And then the next step is
$50,000 is nothing. It's going to cost $100,000 to put the sidewalks
I agree.
But
Well, then,
there's some things that could be done.
Right.
Some of
in. I
them-
know, but it's and when you think about the tiny little sidewalk they're going to put in, that costs $100,000.
then,
Things that could be done with.
Then you're just like, excuse me,
Yeah.
Will probably get done.
I think it's prohibitive for people to repair the sidewalks in front of their
but
homes.
some of these just need a plant tree,
No, I know.
Those are the ones we're gonna probably end up
Right.
going with. Like, so Emily, I guess the thinking is, are we gonna try to do like the most bang for our buck? Like, or is there like one project we're gonna spend all the money? Like, how are we?
Well, I was gonna ask, could we have DPW and the engineer kind of go through and, say this would work, this would not work, and why?
Or price.
And then we could kind of take the ones, looking at the ones they would work, we could choose from those.
So
The ones.
Yeah, don't forget the last step that we were hoping to do in the fall would be, we would have a handful of projects in the first vision was a few for each neighborhood, uptown, midtown, waterfront.
Yeah.
And then the community would vote.
Oh,
So there was that stuff, don't forget. So we were hoping actually for direct participation. In my goal here was to collect John's comments about these so that we hold on, because I'm sure some of these he's gonna, he or DPW is gonna say no, and we would know why, so we can dig deeper, right? All supposedly, so, but, if you talked about how are we going to prioritize them, I don't have an answer to that. If you have a suggestion, tell me now. I can try to structure it in a way that is prioritized in a certain way. I think it'll come down to a lot of different nuances, quite honestly.
yeah.
I think the way these are now, there's not so many unknowns about, especially about cost.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking about the roundabouts as a permanent structure, there's no way that's
There's no
gonna
way
be
that's
here.
going.
If we're talking about hay bales and a
As a
pipeline project, that's something I think that funding could be considered. I don't know how DPW or engineering would feel about that.
One thing, for the daylighting,
Yeah.
we make it just all neighborhoods instead of just the waterfront.
We can, the waterfront didn't have many projects, so I was putting
okay.
it in waterfront because we only had a couple. I think the reasoning, I agree, that it could be anywhere. The reasoning between the three neighborhoods was a bit of I get the impression the city has gotten pushback from specific neighborhoods that feel that they are underserved. And so it's not equity, but equality. So the idea that each neighborhood gets 2 projects, and then you can't complain that the waterfront doesn't get as much love as uptown, right? Which is probably valid. So daylighting, honestly, is a bit of, could be in any district, and maybe people can use it as a fill-in.
Okay.
I put it in waterfront because there was less in waterfront.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Any other thoughts, questions?
One way that people have done like roundabout prototypes is these sort of like, I don't know what they're, I think it's just like really heavy duty plastic and sort of like rampy kind of looking, you know, up to
Just like the little humps that you go around.
yeah, and it's like, and normal cars are like, oh, obviously I should go around that. And bigger trucks that need to navigate the intersection, if it's designed in such a way that they can just like mount the thing and cruise on over. Though the traffic circles I'm imagining are intended for people to be able to left turn in front, like big trucks can like left turn in front of them. Is the hope. But yeah, I mean, like it has been prototyped cheaply.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll add one more thing, like if we did the parking day, I added in here, in order for us to move, like that, I think would be a really affordable thing that we could do. There's not enough staff capacity to do that, so I have to get help from you or other community members to do some of that work, so that might be a little bit of a back and forth conversation. So if I come back to you with list of projects, and you say, actually, honestly, Emily, we do not have the capacity to do that, then maybe try that.
Also, would it really cost $1,000 to rent all those parking spaces?
Dude, I just put in a number, I don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Like, I literally was like, I bet you could do something for $1,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just trying to do a ballpark, just because if we have 50, we do 50 of those projects. I was just trying to get a little bit of spectrum.
What is the meter revenue if there's meter there?
Yeah,
What is the meter revenue? And that's what you usually pay when you rent them out. So if the meter revenue for that day is $50, then that's what it would, that's what you would pay.
and like the pop-up little spot that Ari Goldstein came in, if you wanted to make it a little parklet, cost $1,000, because it shares some planters, I mean,
You're talking about the one on Wall Street?
Yeah.
Just noticed that recently.
Oh, yeah, we
Use
had
your
it here
bus.
top of that.
Oh, okay.
Just like a month ago. They just put it up like a month ago.
Okay, yeah, I just think.
He just keeps doing more and more of that on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, and J.
no, they have a part for that, no, an
No,
Instagram.
that's his Insta, oh, okay,
Yeah.
but that's his Instagram.
Yeah, they have an Instagram for the park itself.
Oh, I
What do
see.
they call it? LYU's Parklet or something like that, I forget what it stands for, something like that. Yeah, so. Okay.
thank you, right?
Yeah.
Great, so now we can move on to the speed camera letter.
Okay, there's a lot of like words on here, but I think, okay, this is kind of old, but I basically almost finalized the letter, except I wasn't able to fix the formatting. Is this one? Yes. But we had people, Brandon and stuff, hoping. And
I did a while, I haven't advanced look at it.
so, so this is almost done. Did everybody get a chance to read it?
It seems okay.
The one question I had about it was, are the speed cameras already set for school zones? Or
They're
they're
already
still?
required to be in school. zones.
That's where they're gonna be.
So that's what they're
According
gonna
to
do.
the law.
So isn't there a part of this letter that is still asking where they should go? That maybe doesn't need to be there because they're all gonna go in this school?
Yeah, it probably wasn't.
Oh, that's good. If
Please.
they're only going to school, then
Yeah, because some of the stuff is, I just copied and pasted it from the Vision Zero website. So there's a couple things that aren't really so.
Yeah, I think it was at the beginning of it somewhere.
Yeah, prioritize upstream preventable safety measures. High risk areas to address them.
I think that whole section, right, consideration.
Well, I
We
think
already
it's like-
know.
But I think that because there's different schools and there's different, each school has its own level of risk and level of crashes, like, like the high school. Is offering. Yeah, there's schools, or even like George Washington has one street that's kind of a quieter side street, and the other side is Washington, which is busier, so. In my opinion, I think this is still relevant, but
Well, no letter is going to be perfect.
yeah,
And at some point in
Yeah.
time,
yeah.
you really just have to say, okay, we
Yeah.
know that they're gonna be going in the areas that they're going. We can be proactively wishful that they go other places. And we could say that in the letter, and I think that's what you're getting at. So I would say any further editing might make the letter moot at this point, because it's been a while. So
Yeah.
we're either gonna
Yeah.
do it or not.
Yeah.
So, there's wordsmithing and then there's just, okay, right.
Yeah.
And that's, the last time I read it, I kind of felt like, well, it pretty much says what we wanted to say.
All right, well, I can then, I can drop in the Big Streets logo and then sign it from like all of us, like the entire council.
That sounds good.
Thank you. Have we done a vote? I recommend doing a vote.
Yes, let's do that.
I move that we accept the letter as presented. With edits as we talked about, I guess, if there were any other edits.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
EJ, do you want to vote?
Yes, sorry, I thought I was muted, yes.
That's okay, no problem. All right, that's unanimous then.
Yay. Okay, and also, one other thing, to the mayor, common council, police commission, I don't know if there's anyone else we should address the letter to.
My God, there's no basis, right? Okay.
What about Vinny the
And
What
We need
are we to address him as?
Dear Vinny, what is his title? That's a great question. If you search parking enforcement.
Parking, or would it just be like his title or just be a park?
He doesn't need to be addressed.
Okay,
That's, I'm overthinking it.
but isn't he part of the police? Like,
He's part of the he's part of the cultural or something.
oh,
Cause he collects the money of the.
oh,
the
Yeah.
parking violations, or we could just say, we could say it to the comptroller's office.
I think I'm overthinking it.
Okay.
I think if basically the mayor is the administrator, he tells all the.
To the mayor and all elected officials, and
Yeah.
that should cover everybody.
yeah, I mean, the common council.
The common
And that's up
council's
to the mayor
elected,
to
the
send
comptroller is
to the
elected,
department.
there you go.
And then we could put this on stationery, the Big Street stationery.
Yeah. But we don't, do you want to include the article at the end or?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, we could take it out.
I think just take that, all right, they'll all done.
And then please appreciate your consideration.
And then, I mean,
Yeah,
I would have you sign it, so you could say that.
okay, thanks, yeah,
And then you sign it on behalf of.
Share,
you can just leave it,
okay, great. So will you do that? Will you put it on the stationery and send it out? Okay, great, thank you.
I might send it to you, Emily, because I don't know, like.
And then, so the other thing is, because, I kind of realized, I was like, oh, we have time to do this, and then I realized, oh, actually, no, they're trying to start the program this fall in time for school to start, so it needs to be done quickly, so I'm just trying to think, strategizing how to, how to present this and who to present it to. There's a police commission meeting next week, the 16th, Wednesday at 4. So we could present it there and talk to some common council members.
I hope you'll like that, unfortunately.
So my understanding, and this is like a quick conversation that I had with Vinny, was that it was going out, the request for proposals, I think, went out to implement this program. So your question about who is running the program, I don't think it's engineering and I don't think it's police. I think the city is hiring a contractor to run it.
But who's overseeing it, I guess I would say.
Right.
That's
Unique engineering?
That
But I'm
sounds, that sounds right. But,
to be, I can't remember
But-
why I think.
but what do you want to talk to them about?
Well, I just want to, you know, because we're writing this letter and it's middle of summer, and I just want to make sure that it actually gets seen and like heard, you know?
Well, if it was submitted as a submittal to the, which group is this? I'm sorry. The police commission?
We're set, yeah, mayor, common council.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be just a part of the overall minutes and things that would be, have been received in letters received by the clerk that would say, we've received letters on this from XYZ at the meeting?
Not entirely sure. I think that makes a lot of sense to me, Claudette. I can't recall.
I gotta start watching your accounts.
Like, like,
Because from where all of my cities, that's what would happen. You would do the
Yeah,
communication. The communication would be read by the clerk
right,
or the secretary of the county, but the clerk that would say, on this particular issue, we received the following. And those letters, recommendations, whatever, unless you were up in front of the public forum and then read that letter, but usually it would be, hi, I'm Chair Paul Stankus, I'm here, I'm submitting a letter on behalf of the Complete Streets Advisory Council, supporting XYZ, you get the letter and you're gone. I don't know what you, so
At
I'm
the
trying,
council meetings.
yeah, so I'm trying to just understand.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, okay, so I don't know, because yeah, so we could just try to go to.
because there's no lobbying to do, I mean, you're just.
Yeah.
so you could, right, so maybe one way to say in my language, you could actually go to the common council meeting and during the public comment period, say,
Yeah.
on representative of the Condition Supervisory Council, if you want to
Right.
be received that, like, the questions. Yes, right?
Yeah.
You could, all of you, whoever wants to, could, ask to meet with the mayor to discuss the program. A great way to ask him how it's going to be implemented and get those answers that you want. If someone wants to find out to answer Claude's question, when the Complete Streets Advisory Council has sent letters before, I've never gone and looked to see if it has shown up in the agenda or minutes of the common council. So that might be a good thing for somebody to do a little bit of research and see when we've done a letter in the past. Was it part of that minute process or did it
It
just? get
seems to me
incorporated?
it should be, but I don't know.
But I don't know the answer to that. I know so Lidwell Kingston just did, Lidwell Kingston asked the common council to do a memorializing resolution for the elimination of SNAP funding. That got sent to the city clerk, which got put onto the agenda for the common council. Then it showed up in their subcommittees, the laws and rules. Lidwell Kingston went to that meeting, talked about the SNAP cuts, and then they voted to pass that resolution and it became part of a memorializing resolution. So that's a
Okay.
very clear process in my
Yeah.
mind how that works.
Okay, well, I guess it's just like, this is actually something that needs to be acted on, so that's the thing, like,
And I think it's more administration than common council, quite frankly.
yeah.
Common councils are
Yeah.
the power of the person policy, right?
Yeah.
They've already allocated the funds for this.
Yeah.
Right now, it's being administered by the mayor and the administration.
Okay, so,
I think you might want to ask the mayor
yeah,
and say, here's our recommendations. Can you answer these questions?
yeah,
But I would be curious to find out if you're writing letters of recommendation to
What?
support any kind of legislation or any kind of action that goes on in the city, where is the letter going? Because in my mind, we are advisory council. It should be part of the recorded minutes that go
yeah.
to, and if that's not happening, we really need to make sure that it does, because otherwise there's no memorialization.
Why?
Exactly, so I think that's why I was kind of like, no, what do you mean? I mean, that to me is just pretty much normal as to what should happen, so if it's not, we need to say, okay, folks, this is important for us. Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to get at, is like, I know a process for you to get in front of the common council, so if you wanted to do that, we'd have to send it to be on their agenda, and then somebody needs to show up at their meeting. So if you just send an
Okay.
email to their email addresses, you're not asking to be in front of them. It's not part of that formal process.
Okay,
Right.
so I'm gonna put that.
Yeah, just to find out, because I'm now curious as to where is it going? What's happening?
Okay. So, so I guess what I would ask, we're over time. But, so Paul, can you email the mayor and ask?
He's come to meetings in the past. Might
Yeah,
could possibly come to the next meeting.
I'm just thinking because they're moving really fast on it.
Mhm.
Um. Or we can ask him, maybe we could say, hey, can you pause what you're doing with the speed camera before you talk to him? Because I mean, otherwise, I don't know if we're really gonna get to him in time. Because part of our recommendation is, yeah, we could send a phone call.
But unfortunately, probably during work hours, which I know is tough, because, for working hours, but to say, hey,
Yeah.
Roy, can we meet with the mayor for 15 minutes for a phone call?
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't have to be
yeah,
later than that.
that'd be great. I mean, yeah, I have a, let's schedule. If anyone wanted to do, I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be all of us, but if anyone could or would.
I guess just quickly, the letters of support, we can maybe vote over those, about those on, email, unless people are comfortable enough to voice your support in person, if people have had a chance to review them.
I'm comfortable with anybody.
Yeah, I think I am too. I know Gustavo already mentioned he wanted to support all three on email. I'm not sure if anyone else followed up with that. But yeah, so I guess, I'll make a motion to support all three of the letters of support.
I move that you separate them because I don't support all three.
Okay.
Okay.
Spicy club. Interesting.
Okay, which one and why?
I don't support Route 17.
Oh,
That's the next one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
sorry. Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute.
No,
Okay.
no,
All right,
Route
so
17 is
so which three letters of support? Okay, just so I make sure I'm on the right thing.
The first one is the Rondout Creek Flood Protection
Okay.
Emergency Preparation Project.
Okay,
Then the Smart Growth Communities application.
okay,
For the
And they're-
comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
It's important to say the comprehensive.
okay.
okay.
And then the recreational trail
Okay,
application.
those three I'm
That's
on.
like the little
Okay,
trails.
yes, yeah, okay.
So this, yeah, I think they're all.
I'm sorry, I understood.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. EJ, do you have a vote?
Yes, I.
Okay, great, thanks, and, yeah, we have to solve the votes.
So you draft those letters?
Yes.
Someone then sign them and then do you want me to, then I can forward them on?
Sure, yeah, I'll do that. That's fine, and then honestly, yeah, Route 17.
Can we vote on it?
Sure, we can vote on Route 17. What are we voting on? We're voting on getting on board with the organization that has come up with the opposition, right? And what organization?
Yeah, actually, this was Kingston, Catskill Mountain Keeper, and they actually haven't sent a letter of support that would be signed. They're looking for
Okay.
signatories. This was more something for.
We would make a letter.
Either-
Send it to.
I think that I would write and ask hey, I think we're interested, can you send a letter? And so maybe there isn't even something to vote on. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe I should.
I think
request.
the person, one of the representatives did have a little bit of a spot on Spectrum, the local Hudson Valley News or whatever.
Mhm.
And actually I saw it before all of this came up and I went. I grew up in Ackport and understand, yes, family has used Route 17. I wasn't impressed with their presentation, at least on Spectrum, and I just, no.
With whose presentation?
I believe it was one of their representatives was talking about. this-
Catskill?
From Catskill, yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
My sort of thinking was that it was a little bit outside of our wheelhouse.
Well, yeah, in the sense when it came here, I think it is outside.
Yeah, and I know we did a letter about congestion pricing, but I do feel like that. Our connections to New York City through Metro North or whatever, which will be funded by that, is like my sort of thinking about it all, but Route 17 is another county over.
Yeah, although some of the recommendations they made are regarding the OW trail, which ends here and also the village. Big closer.
There are, I think,
Indirectly.
yeah, I think there are things that could be done to improve the trail, but I definitely think that the actual roadway needs help.
That's basically my thinking too.
And I'm not, and in this, for me, I don't wanna neglect the roadway. Simply just to say, oh, we don't want cars, because it's like, no, there's something has to be done.
And it's also fundamentally different. Like I know Gustavo said over email, like I can't believe they want to add 3 lanes. And it's not like adding it to an urban area where if you add 3 lanes, it'll just quickly fill up with cars. Like it's a rural area. It's not going to be affected the same way when you expand and improve a road, if you will, to sort of like negate traffic reasons. Like that's not even really why they're doing it. They're doing it because it's like a
The
mess.
road is bad, it's just hell.
It's your big suits, I mean, we're
I don't know.
like in Kingston, I mean, what? Why are we?
It's like, why are you messing with other people's business, like the way I look at it?
Well,
But, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I actually do think it contributes to induced demand. I mean, one thing I was kind of looking into Legoland at Goshen, which I think is, contributed, I think it's a significant factor in this whole thing because I think that they're having like 10,000 or, they're having tens of thousands sometimes of people a day going to Legoland and driving. They're all driving on Route 17. So I do think that, I think there's alternative solutions for getting people to Legoland, that would not, such as buses, which would not require, which would reduce the amount of cars on the road significantly. And,
that may be true in 10 years from now.
yeah.
But right now, and even though I definitely am for the congestion pricing, I actually had a conversation with a very dear friend of mine who lives in the city, and the whole congestion pricing thing came up, and when I listened to what he had to say, I actually kind of changed my mind a little bit on it. So I know cars are hard, and I know that we have issues, but there are just some things that right now, I can't just say, okay, there's mass transit, because there isn't, and there's not gonna be.
Well,
And-
let's see.
Yeah, but
I mean, Legoland could be doing it. I don't know. I think there's opportunities to do it, and I think it would not take that long. I mean, it would cost money, but how much are people spending? Like, and it's like, this is $1 billion project, and it's gonna save people a few minutes of.
well, I still feel. I still don't. If the committee votes, the council votes for it, and as a majority vote, that's fine. I'm just saying, I still have misgivings about voting yes for it. I really do.
Well, yeah, like kind of that, we have anything to vote for anyway. Should we just table it for a while then? I mean,
We can table it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
should we vote on tabling it or is that? Okay.
They don't really have anything to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just vote when you make a decision on something, your will either affect like your recommendation or,
All right, then, I think we're running a little late. We can approve it.
let's finish.
Yeah, yeah.
Announcement of communications. The Kingston spotlights, do you mind if I tell folks about that?
Go ahead.
Or would you like to?
No, you sound because I'll be modest.
I'll try to be fast.
Okay.
For the completion so for the Creating Healthy Schools and Communities grant project that is in my department. Sure, that's not good. My colleague Kristen Kessler did a communications project, and it's called Kingston Spotlights. I'm sorry, I didn't have the web page ready.
Believe it or not, I haven't.
I believe it, my dear. So the point creating healthy schools and communities is physical activity and nutrition in the community, early childcare and schools. And some of that community work has been some of my some work that I've done. So part of Post Office Park, the bike racks have been installed around town. So Kristen has been doing then there's work that's been happening in schools and in the early childcare centers. She created a communications campaign to spotlight different individuals that have been impacted by that work to show the value of it. And Claudette was one of the people that was highlighted. And let's see if you can see more of this beautiful photo of Claudette. Let's see, can you see it? No, you can't see it.
On a tree on a street with no sidewalk. Well, actually, there was a sidewalk. We showed where the sidewalk was, and it was kind of a joke about the sidewalk goes to nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's Claudette highlighted in this article. It's a beautiful photo. And then there was an interview with Claudette and many others.
Yeah.
So if you go to, this was on the Live Well Kingston Instagram and other social media. And then this is on the Live Well Kingston website where you can see sort of a highlight of this communications campaign. And Claudette talked about her time and your goals as part of the Complete Streets Advisory Council. So just wanted to make sure you're all aware of the shout out to Complete Streets and how lovely Claudette is.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was fun. I really hadn't expected yes, but it's like, okay.
You're number one too.
Yeah, well, that's what surprised, that was what surprised me when I saw the email and I went, oh, I don't know if I want to see this. But yeah, I was like, I knew I was part of the project, but I didn't realize I was first on the list. That was a little shocking. But no, they were very nice. It was good. And, we just talked about some of the deficiencies and things, what it's like getting around. And it was nice. And, what this group is trying to do. Yes.
Well, thanks for hearing you guys. So I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thanks.
Everybody stay cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.